All right, we're going to talk about The Skin Written by Desmond Cole. Well, that's really shiny. It's Heather's picks. Evidently, because that's what the sticker says from Cole's. I don't know who Heather is. I don't know. Whatever. Heathers are nice. I actually knew a girl named Heather in grade school. She was nice. Anyway, Skin Written by Desmond Cole. He is a Canadian author, clearly, because it's a book. Journalist as well. And this is about a kind of month-by-month look at living in the skin of a person of color, Black person, First Nations, and the systemic racism that we like to say in Canada doesn't exist. It's a US problem. And there's no Canadian exceptionality or whatever you want to say. Like, it's Canada, you got the same problems. We're going to look at this now. Before we do that, a couple ways to support the channel. Number one is to go to patreon.com/CurtisMcHale, become a patron. Number two is to go to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare, take my course on TickTick, take my course on time blocking, and maybe by the time you've seen this, my course on getting started with Zettelkasten will already be out, hopefully. That's it. Let's talk about The Skin Written. Buckle up. I think I got a kid coming now, so I'll just have to wait. No, they're back upstairs. Kid's got to clean the kitchen tonight. Not my job. So I feel like I've said in a bunch of other books when I've talked about racism, like, while I'll no longer talk to white people about race, maybe words have a past as well. That has seemed to me like racism in Canada is much more directed at First Nations than Black people. That Canada doesn't have it isn't as bad as the US, as other places when it comes to racism, specifically with Black people. And the truth is that I've been reading through this book, I just didn't see it become a white guy, and the whole world is my safe space. Now, the experiences documented in Desmond Cole's book, The Skin Written, of millions of my fellow Canadians is that racism is strongly prevalent in Canada, and that its government institutions are, in many ways, were set up. We actually learned about this in Words Have a Past, how the RCMP, the Mounties, were set up to essentially move First Nations off their land as a racist organization. And even looking at this and looking at Scratch, which is over here, I'll be reviewing that in a few weeks. It talked about in Scratch about how Black people paying taxes is literally financing their own oppression by by government, right? They're paying for police that are going to then be racist and oppress them, which is terrible. I don't say irony, it's terrible, really. Let's take a quote from The Skin Written. It says, "The Canadian government and its institutions are the products of a white supremacist ideology that claims this land as the property of white European colonial government. To maintain its stolen land, the government is engaged in ongoing, centuries-long genocide of Indigenous peoples. Our government is designed to assimilate or eradicate Indigenous peoples, and unfortunately, it works exactly as it was designed to." So in addition to specifically Black, like racism specifically against the Black community, he talked a lot about the racism and the, honestly, how far is it off genocide that the Canadian government continues to perpetuate against First Nations. And how we, in fact, hide a lot of the violence against First Nations, against people of color in Canada behind the word policing. That a lot of this violence, this racist violence, and he talked about numerous, like off-duty police officers chasing kids down and beating them almost to death in Toronto, and nothing happened until there was like a huge public outcry and there was like long-term like upset about it. Then finally somebody got charged, and as the book concluded, they don't even know like what was the outcome of that. I believe I looked it up, and I believe actually something happened, and the police officer was criminally charged and convicted. But the truth is that there are very few investigations into police brutality, and almost all of them say, the police are okay. So it's easy to think that, especially as a white guy, that this doesn't happen in Canada, but it absolutely does. I just don't see it because it's not the world I have to live in. So another thing that the Canadian legal system, police system has done is taken the old pass system we used on First Nations to enforce their stuckness on treaty land, right? Canadian government would take their children, put them in residential schools, and tell them they weren't allowed off native land without a pass. We've transferred that into carding today, which is the practice of mostly Black people, asking them for identification as they just exist in society, which calls into question specifically the existence of Black people being allowed around in our society. Which is, I don't even know what to say about some of these things. It's just, you read that and you're like, it absolutely does. Like, I don't walk around, see a police officer and be like, oh, look, I wonder if they're going to ask my identification, and like then have some reason to, haul me in on some weird thing. Like, I just like, oh, it's a police officer. Great. I'm not a big deal. But Black people, their existence in society is criminalized easily by police just because of the color of their skin. Now, another thing that we see Canadians do is say we were the final stop on the Underground Railroad, right? Or escaping from slavery, that Canada was a big destination. We did a good job about that. And we use that to imply that once you cross some invisible boundary of land, that the problems of racism go away. And the truth is they don't. And that we continue to enforce a whole bunch of immigration policies which are applied mostly to people of color and less to white people, that only came into being after a bunch of white people came and stole land from the First Nations. And then we decided that no more people can steal land. No more people can get into this land unless we approve of you and we think you're acceptable. It's just white people enforcing rules on stolen land. So I guess the question is, should you read The Skin Written by Desmond Cole? I think you should if you're a Canadian. I think that if you want to go and really start to pull the veneer off Canada's super nice and nice to everyone of every race, then you need to go and read this book, because you're going to come out of it and being like, man, the Canadian systems suck and we're not any better. And hopefully you come out as well saying, I need to do something about this. We've taken some superficial steps, at least, right? We've, I guess, at least proclaimed the Proud Boys a terrorist organization as of today in Parliament, which is good. It's a good step, but there's so much more, right? And the Proud Boys are loud and proud about it, but how many police officers are the same way, and it's just justified violence, justified racism under the name of policing? Now, I know I'm a number of police officers, and I have a hard time seeing them doing that, but I can very easily see people who already have some of those tendencies toward racism using policing as a cover for their violence. That's it. It's another hard book. I think hard books are the best ones. Books that challenge us, books that make us think and make us not even feel worse about ourselves, but make us less secure in our feeling of superiority, are the good books. So that's it. If you liked the video, you can support the channel by going to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare. Take my course on TickTick. Take my course on time blocking. You can go to patreon.com/curtismchale. Become a patron. You can give me a thumbs up below, because then YouTube will show the video to more people, or you can also subscribe and hit the bell if you really liked it. And in theory, YouTube will let you know when videos happen, but it's the algorithm who actually knows if it's going to happen. That's it. Have a good one.